Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn Neil Haley, Instagram Total Tutor, Pinterest Neil Haley, and Google Plus, and also on Periscope at Total Tutor. And this is going to be a really interesting author that we're welcoming into the program. So I'm really excited to welcome the program, Florence Calderon Blake. Florence, thanks for calling, and how are you?
Thank you. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your background, then we're going to get right into the book.
Okay, my background as far as writing, do you
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely, absolutely. Some of the writing, yes.
Okay, I've written I've written for approximately 1,900 articles for magazines, newspapers, anthologies, and I'm still writing. I'm still freelance writing. I taught in a local college for 5 years. I taught a course called The Trick to Getting Published. 90% of my students have been published for the first time
Oh,
after
wow.
taking my course. I have edited and critiqued manuscripts for deans and instructors, PhDs. It's amazing. I mean, people went to school much later than I did, and they didn't learn the rules of grammar, structure, style. They just didn't teach that
Right.
anymore. And so college professors will ask me to critique their manuscript before they send it to a writer because they're needing me to
Exactly.
find and it's amazing to me how many errors that I find. These are people who are teaching in colleges, and it's kind of a sad commentary on our educational system of today.
Definitely, and because we have two segments, I want a little more about you, Florence, and then we're going to kind of go into the book because very, very, very interesting. So you were helping others get published, and you is this your first book you've written yourself?
Yeah, I have put together other materials for books, but not gotten it published, not even tried to get it published. I concentrated on my memoir because it is the story of a violent life. I'm the daughter of murderers. Both my parents tried to kill me. My father tried to kill all 5 of his children.
Oh, my.
So I had an extremely violent upbringing, and I was rescued from a knife blade that my mother had at my throat, where she was literally slitting my throat.
Oh,
When
my.
I was years old, she tried to choke me. She tried to slit my throat. She tried to starve me to death. And there's a perfect God in heaven that rescued me every time. So I just had to put that down. That's just, I've had
Right.
a miraculous life.
So as a writer and a teacher, this is your story, and you wanted to get it out on paper. But other books, your passion is helping others get published. It sounds like.
That's correct, yes. I've had people with doctorates now that have had books published that thank me lavishly every time they see me and talk to me because they were lost on their own trying to get to a publisher.
Oh, my. That's and so. And what do you learn with now how things are changing so much in book rules? Now anyone can get self-published to themselves via Amazon or you know other types of platforms everywhere. Is that good for writing in general and books and authors, or do you think it oversaturates things?
But the problem is that people who write think that once they're published, they're going to become famous.
Right.
They look at the talk shows, the TV talk shows where some celebrity has penned the book.
Exactly.
And they just decide if you get a book published, you're going to be rich and famous.
And it's not true.
It doesn't work that way. If you walk into a major bookstore like Barnes & Noble and you look around at everything on that shelf, calculate how many of those authors make a living as a writer. Do you know what the percentage is, Neil? May I call you Neil?
Yeah, absolutely call me Neil. No, I'd say the percentage, I would say about 0.5%, 1/4%.
1%.
1%. Yeah.
1% make a living. I don't mean get rich. I don't mean get famous. 1% make a living as writers of the ones who have their books on the bookshelves of the major bookstores. So that factors in people like Stephen King.
Yes.
And Dave Barry and even the so-called the Harry Potter series, even the
J.K. Rowling. Yes.
Yeah. They are in this percentage, in this mix that makes 1% of writers that make a living. So,
yeah.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to kind of expound on that. It's so true. I mean, that everyone thinks a book they're going to get rich. And, you talk about Dean Koontz. There's only a list of few that make a really good living off this. Then the rest are making enough. But that's what they're making, but that's not what they do. That's right. The big thing, that a book is a tool. It's a tool for your passion, but also for other things. When I do social media and branding for companies and authors, I tell the authors, this is a tool. Don't expect you want to get your message out? Absolutely, you'll get your message out. But don't expect this to be an overnight success. 10,000. They might as well learn YouTube, right? before learn how to do YouTube and make that the overnight success, because books are for a certain chosen few who buy them still. And it's a great thing. It's a great business card. It's a great way to tell your story. It's great to find a niche audience, but the number of them that really make money are few and far between.
Well, that's true. And another huge mistake writers make, and you probably are well aware of this, is that they begin with a book.
Right.
They have a novel or they have a life story in them, and they start with a book. That's a mistake. They should establish their credibility as writers first by getting published in magazines, newspapers. Have something under your belt. I would ask my students 2 questions the first day of class. Why do we read?
Yeah.
And it's really 2 answers, for information or for amusement.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Why do we write? And they would give you all kinds of, because I want to express myself. No, you should be writing for the same reason as people are reading.
Yeah.
And if you don't answer those the same way, you're approaching it wrong. If you ask them, what is your definition of writing? Oh, well, it's an art. It's an industry.
It is.
If you view it as an industry first, then you are understanding what you're up against. Another mistake a lot of them make is we paint publishers with the same brush. We think, okay, publishers want this or that or the other thing. It's kind of like if we were traveling, let's say, to a foreign country.
Yes.
Oh, let's say we were traveling let's say we're all from Scotland.
Okay.
And we're at the airport having left a visit to the United States. Okay, were, let's say, 5 people. One of us ate at a fast food restaurant.
Okay.
One of us ate at a buffet lunch, and another one went to a pancake house. Another one went to a real ritzy restaurant in a hotel, and another one went to Subway sandwiches. Now, if the reporter that's interviewing us at the airport says, "What are restaurants like in the United States?" The one who went to the fast food place will say, "Oh, you sit in your car and you order
Yeah,
at a box, and then you pay your food and you leave with your food."
exactly.
The one who went to the ritzy sit-down restaurant will say, "Oh no, you have to make a reservation, and they're not open on Mondays." And you know, it's a totally different picture. The one who went to Subway says, "Oh no, you stand there and you tell them what you want." The one who went to the buffet will say, "Will you select your own food, but you don't have to leave a tip?" You know,
Yeah.
there are so many different things that publishers do that everybody would say is the same thing, and that's a mistake we make.
No, you're hitting it really. What you were talking about involving that is that to get it's really if you have a polished message that really is going to benefit a group of people, and you get a person like yourself to teach you how to write a book, and you find the right people as editors and the right self-publisher or publisher to put that book out in the market, then you are in the same space with that 1%. But if you don't do that, you have errors completely in your book, you have a poorly laid out book, and it's just very unprofessional, you are hurting that 1% and a lot of hard-working authors, correct?
Absolutely. And you're right about publishing kind of shrinking. Book sales are shrinking. People would rather play video games or watch television.
Yeah.
And spend time even on social media with their friends, texting and whatnot. People have to be drawn into a book. They have to be grabbed at the first sentence, or they will put it down and go watch television. And that's a huge mistake writers make too.
Okay, when we get back, Florence, we're going to now talk about the book and go into that. And I know one segment's not enough time, but I'm glad to learn some of your background. So we get back, you're watching the Neil Haley Show and our live Author's Corner on the radio, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and we're having a good conversation with Florence about her job as a teacher and learning specifically what she does. Now, the book, your background, your life. Again, you wrote the book, The Sicilian Nobleman's Daughter, and a perfect timing to talk about that. Father's Day coming up tomorrow on Sunday. Tell me specifically, you were telling me some of the things you had gone through. It's just terrifying to know some of those things and how you had to kind of re-identify yourself.
Well, my father was a nobleman. That's why the title, the Sicilian nobleman's daughter. He was knighted by King Victor Emmanuel III of Italy.
Oh, my.
And, and yes, he committed an act of valor. He rescued a very high-ranking Italian official from the Italian army when he was. Now, this was in World War I. I understand the information you were given was that my father was in World War II. My father was old enough to be my grandfather. He was in World War I. But that he rescued this high-ranking Italian official, and the king was so impressed that he gave him the title of Cavaliere, which is the same as knighthood in the United States. And he hated Mussolini. He attempted to assassinate Benito Mussolini because my father's father owned all the wealth and industry in the city of Casteltermini, Sicily. He owned a sulfur mine and a mill, most of the real estate. So it was a city of 9,000 people, but they all owed their livelihood and their housing to my grandfather. So when Mussolini came along, fascism wanted to take away all the business and industry and take over. So my father attempted to assassinate him. He would have done it. He was an expert marksman with a rifle. But Mussolini didn't show up. He sent a substitute because he knew he had enemies in Sicily, namely the mafia. My father was not a mafioso, neither at the time was my grandfather. But they had to choose between mafia and fascism. And let's face it, your enemy, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So my father realized he would not conquer Mussolini if the guy wouldn't show up for his own assassination. So he decided to take his family to the United States and start a life here. Well, he didn't speak the language. He had attained his citizenship, but barely. I mean, he could read and write English, but he couldn't speak intelligible English. So we went to absolute poverty. I mean, abject poverty. Only people that would rent housing to greenhorns, immigrants, were the slumlords. And it was a high crime area. It was vermin infested. It was, you had to sprint to school. You did not walk to school. You had to get away from the gangs. And this abject poverty really affected his brain. I mean, it was a culture shock, the burst water. So one time when my mother was desperately ill in the hospital, she had a burst appendix, the doctors told my father, your wife might not live. Yes, but well, he decided, I am not going to be raising 5 kids on my own. So he was going to kill all 5 of us.
Oh, no.
And he attempted, he told us, you're going to starve to death or you're going to freeze to death. I will leave you in this house. I will not come back until you're all dead.
Oh,
well,
wow.
A perfect God in heaven intervened. My mother did get better. She did come home. But during that time while he was absent, again, that perfect God provided food. It's all explained. I mean, you don't have, I'm sure you don't have time to listen to all the details, but he never let us down. So that was his attempt to kill us. He did murder his own sister in Sicily because she became pregnant out of wedlock. You don't do that in Sicily. You do not besmirch the family's name.
Yes.
She was pregnant by a married man, so she couldn't be a shotgun wedding type of thing. The only way to avenge the family honor was for my father to shoot her to death, her and her unborn child.
Oh, no.
So And he was proud of it. I mean, he told me this like I could hold my head up high walking down the street now because the blot on the family name has been erased. And he wouldn't even admit he had a sister until I finally had it out with him one day. My mother hated my guts because she hated my father's family. She was more or less forced to marry him. She was an abandoned orphan.
Okay.
A horrible existence of her own. So when somebody asked for her hand in marriage, her relatives that were raising her, who resented every day of having to take care of her, said, okay, you're getting married to Don Angelo Calderon's son. You should be very proud that he asked for your hand in marriage. So they kind of palmed her off on him. And she couldn't stand him. She didn't want him from the word go.
Oh, my gosh.
So I was the only one of her kids that looked like him, like his side of the family. So she despised me from the word go. She even tried to abort me before I was born, which was not legal back then. But that didn't work. She didn't know what I was going to look like, but she did not want to have another child.
So that's got to be so difficult for you, Florence. It has to be so hard of what you dealt with, how you were treated by your family, your father and mother. How did you, and I'm sure this is a story in the book, how did you cope and deal with all this pain?
Well, it's a funny thing. People often ask me, how could you love a God that allows you to go through this even? When violence is all you know, you think it's normal.
Right.
I have seen this in working in social work with families.
Yes.
They're used to what they see at home, and they think everybody else lives the same way. I knew my parents acted like saints in front of the outside world.
Exactly.
And at home, they were like, my father would flatten my mother with a punch and leave her out. They were always fighting. They were always backstabbing people, and they were hypocrites. But I thought, well, this is how people live. So if somebody told me something complimentary, I think, oh, they're just saying that. But they don't really think that, because my parents say things they don't really think to me.
And then at home, they do something different, right? They're the perfect people outside in the community, then they come home and they're monsters.
Oh, yeah. And so my family was very rough on me. My siblings were miserable on me. They treated me like absolute dirt. But, you know, when they grew up, they turned out to be very nice people. My brothers are perfect gentlemen. My sister was very happily married for 62 years. So, you know, people grow up, they grow out of these things. As far as how I coped, how I made it and survived to adulthood with a sense of humor, you'll see that if you read the pages of my book. I found the perfect God in heaven that just rescued me.
That's great. So your faith got you through all this, and you saw that strength that you had from your faith led you through, and then to have a career and a life and change, just like you talked about your brother, being a perfect gentleman after what he dealt with in the family before, and your sister being married for so many years, that the adversity they dealt with, and I don't know if they had the faith like you did, Florence, you just moved forward. We can deal with adversity as long as we are able to have something to turn to. And it has to be something good, which is, as you talked about, is your faith.
It's my God.
Yes, exactly.
My God, that gives faith. Yeah. Yeah, he gives us everything we have, and even faith. That's a gift from him. I mean, that's something the Apostle Paul said. Um, By grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It's a gift of God.
Exactly.
Not of works, lest any should boast. So yeah, he took care of me, and he's perfect. He's absolutely perfect. He can't make mistakes. He can't do wrong.
That's tremendous story to say the least, and the way that you've overcome things to be a teacher and teach others, and to in your whole life in general. Where's the best place we can purchase your book, learn more about you, find out information on you? Where can we go, Florence?
Well, it's on Amazon.com. It's on Kindle. It's on Nook, BarnesandNoble.com. You could order it direct through the publisher. Let's see, that would be Redemption.
I think you go ahead.
Hello?
No, just give me that information. I'll make sure I put that up on the screen where else you can find information on it. But I appreciate you calling, Florence. Best of luck in your ventures, and helping others get published, and keeping books alive. Books are always going to stay alive, Florence, yet they are going to be in a different way, but always people want to turn pages. Trust me, as you see more and more books being written every day, Florence, it's not disappearing, just the market's getting larger and larger.
Oh, that's great.
All right,
That's great.
take care. Thanks again for calling.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
See ya. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, and all that, and neilhaley.com. Take care, guys, and we'll have another exciting show next week. Good day, everyone.